Hey friends, so let's talk about this week's project, which is in the lighting and drafting realm, okay? I have posted a video in the lecture component of this class that talks about how you set up light plots in a pretty broad way. I'm not gonna have us draft a light plot because you would all need lighting templates in order to do that, and really no sane person will draft a light plot by hand. Like, that's what Vectorworks is for. But I am going to give you a quick walkthrough of the useful process in drafting for lighting design, which we use when we're working with our section view, and that is to map out the beam spread of different fixtures in order to choose the fixture that will work best in a given scenario. Okay, so as you know about lights, I hope by now, each lighting fixture has a beam spread, right? So if it's a narrow beam, it'll be like this. It'll be this sort of an angle. If it's a wide angle fixture, like a floodlight, it'll be something wide like that, right? That is determined by the specific optics of the fixture, and that is photometrics, right? So photometrics is kind of the study of the spread of light at distances and etc. Broad topic. But when we talk about it in stage lighting, we're talking about those beam spread numbers. And the way that they're useful to us is in figuring out how those fixtures will overlap in a lighting situation, right? So we're trying to make sure that that beam spread, right? So the beam spread of lighting fixture number 1 overlaps appropriately with lighting fixture number 2 so that this part of the stage is covered, right? That's the basic concept. And that would make more sense if I did it right side up, right? I'm the stage, right? These are 2 lights. This is their beam spreads, right? Right now, they're too far apart because if I were a person, my head would come sticking out from in between them, okay? So this is the puzzle we're going to work on solving. So what I'm going to have you guys do is 2 studies, right? 2 beam spread studies. And your base plate, you have 2 options. If you have printing technology, I have supplied the section view from our project, and you can print it out. So you would just print 2 copies of it and then do these beam studies. If you do not have printing technology, go ahead and draft. Feel free to skip the detail, right? But I would get this main platform in and then add in the various hanging positions I have indicated, as well as the 2 people. And if you are drafting this, the way I would go about it would be to take that sheet of vellum I was playing with before and draft the plate onto it, okay? So use the power of tracing to just make a quick copy sketch of this section view. So once we have that section view and you've added in, I've given you measurements for these lighting positions so you can find them. The next step is we're going to diagram 2 systems. So I'm going to do a front light system and a backlight, or let's call it a top light, right? Top light system. So a front light system is obviously coming from the front, right? A top light system is coming kind of straight down. And our goal will be to pick out what fixture makes sense in this context, okay? So I'm going to do the example with the Altmans, and you do have those Altman symbols available to you in the larger packet. But I want you to use the source 4s probably, and then maybe the Fresnels for your top light. So you have first a document that is just a giant grid of all of the lighting fixture symbols that was in this file already because I use it with some students who are drafting light plots in 1/2 inch scale. And this allowed them to trace the fixture that they needed. So you're getting it just so that you have a reference for the different types of lights and their symbols. And then you're getting a stack of pages, and I don't know what order they're in for you, but I have pars and Fresnels and ellipsoidal fixtures, source 4 ellipsoidal fixtures, and then Altman fixtures. And each of those has a beam spread drawn. And you can't see them very well here. They're not super bold on the printed out copy that I did. So if you're having trouble seeing these lines, you can either trace over them, or you can let me know and I'll try and do another version. Like I'll trace over them in the software so that they come through better for you. And I'm just tracing over them. Hold please, and then we'll talk about our next step in this process. Okay, y'all, I'm back. All right, so I have traced over these beam angles so that they're a little bit easier to see. If you have a protractor, you can measure them. I pulled them from the database in the library in Vectorworks, right? So I could just print out these drawings for you. But if you have a protractor, you can measure that beam angle. If you don't, then you have a couple of options. I like the one where you just cut that out. You can also, when you do your printing, you can print this out on vellum, right? So that you're able to just trace over those beams and you can almost see through it enough when it's even regular paper. So I might try that strategy, see if I can get away with that. So let's figure it out now for the front light, and I'm going to do it with the Altman fixtures, okay? So what I need to do, if you notice on your plan, there are 2 actors on the stage, and they are spaced about 8 feet apart, which is sort of our standard acting area when we're doing lighting. So this distance is generally about 8 feet. You need a person who's generally about 6 feet tall because that gives us sort of the upper end as we're working through this process. And then what you'll do is you'll pick a fixture, right? With the goal being to be able to hang it on a lighting position and to see how that beam spread will cover both the individual actors, right? So if you have one of those lights hanging at like this 45-degree angle towards this actor, right? You need them to be covered by that fixture, but you also need it to overlap with the light that's for this person, right? And so this person's fixture will probably come from all the way out here. So you have one kind of a shorter throw and one a little bit longer throw, and you're looking to come up with beams that will overlap above head height, right? You want the overlap above head height so that you know your lighting is covering that whole area. So that's the puzzle for today. If I'm using Altman's, I don't have a ton of options, right? So let me just sort of try out some different beam spreads, okay? So to focus a fixture, you'll line up this center line to the head of the actor, and then you'll trace over those beam angle lines. So if I'm doing this lady up here with this fixture right here, which is the 6x12, then you'll see as I sort of set it on the spot, right? Line it up with her head, then it's really only, that's not lined up on this. Great. Put the fixture pointed at her face, right? You can't really see through the paper, but I very faintly can. So I'm going to trace over this for you so that we're all in it together. We're all seeing what's happening together, right? So when I use that fixture, I'm only getting like her waist up, right? So there's no way that this is going to be the light to solve the problem of I need an overlapping situation because it doesn't even cover her feet when it's focused at her head. So I think I'm going to go with the biggest option available on this particular choice of fixtures, okay? So I'm going to just erase those lines for now. And I'm going to go over and trace this one, which is the 6x9. And I'll use that as my decision, okay? And I can, if I point it directly at her head, right, then you can see, you might not be able to see, but I can see the beam is like this, okay? And like, that's all right, but it doesn't do us a great service in terms of filling in this gap, and I don't necessarily need it to shine all the way up on this wall. So I'm just going to focus a little down, tilt a little down, keep that center kind of close to her head, but maybe even just tip it a little lower. So she would actually be standing right on the edge in order to have this light be focused on her, like the center of the beam. And now I'm going to draw in this beam spread. Right? So now that would be this fixture over this part of the stage. Okay? So I'm going to try the same light, although we might be able to step down. But let's try the same kind of light coming from all the way out here now. Okay? So this would be hanging out in this position, and I'm again going to align that center focus line with this actor, okay, with their head. And then let's overlap and see where we are with these beams. Yeah, so we're pretty good, and we might even want to step down a lens. I'm going to see if that'll work, because if we do step down a lens, then we'll be able to get a more similar brightness in the fixture. Hashtag lighting design. And I think we're going to be just fine even stepping down a lens. So this is going one lens smaller with the 6x12, one beam angle smaller. Right? Still totally good in terms of a height that's above the actor's head for this cross, that intersection. But now, and we would even be able to tip up if we wanted to, but now we're getting a little bit closer to just that actor's space, okay? So what we ended up with there was a 6x9 for this fixture, okay, and a 6x12 for this fixture. And now we know from having done this study that those beams will overlap above the head of our actor, which means that they will stay in the light as they cross down these steps towards the downstage area, okay? And this would then determine that we would hang 6x9s on this closer pipe and 6x12s on this farther pipe when we set up our light plot, okay? So we're gonna do one more, which is a top light one. And in that case, I'll use a Fresnel probably, although it shouldn't be a problem to do a top light study. So with my Fresnel, I have to kind of pick which position it can hang on, and I'm thinking probably this one, right? And it would be a little bit of a front lighty kind of Fresnel coming from here. Ideally, it would want to be kind of a backlight and come from right above the wall. So you might be able to like float it out here if you wanted to, if you're the designer. But what we'll do here is we'll go ahead and trace in these beam angle lines. That's full flood. And then we'll figure out where the next one goes. And I'm guessing it wants to go right above this actor on this next close pipe, right? And we'll lose them a little bit, it looks like, right? You'll see right here, this overlap is a little low. So this might be a case where you would ask your electrician to yoke up that fixture, right? So that it's just this much higher. If it's coming from right above the grid, then you'll be able to raise that beam and get enough beam spread for both actors to be in that fixture light, in that fixture's light. So you'll just choose. I mean, you can play with pars if you want to. These par beam angles are much wider because the par, if you remember, is an oval shaped beam. So this is the actual footprint of the light, and this is the long direction, right, of the oval in terms of its beam spread for the various very narrow spot, medium flood, wide flood pars. So those are also an option for your top light. But if you want to do it the quick and easy way, I would just drop a Fresnel for each of those positions and make sure that you have it high enough if you need to yoke up or something, that they overlap and allow that actor to cross in the light. So that is this week's assignment. I hope that makes sense. It's a tricky thing that I've not really taught as much as some other things, but it is something that's super important to know how to do as a lighting designer, and it is one of the times when you would benefit from doing a quick hand drafted study as opposed to sitting and waiting, or whatever, right? All right, friends. So 2 plates, right? A top light and a front light. And since I did the Altmans, maybe you should do the source 4s for your front light, right? And figure out which source 4s you would use in kind of roughly the same positions in order to do a front light system in this particular space. So, oh, the other thing is this height, right? Which I believe is like 15 feet, because the total height is 17, but I'll look that up and I'll let you know. That's it. All right. Thanks, friends. Let me know if you have questions, if there's anything I can help clarify on this specific topic. Bye.